Vancouver. Pre-game, post-game, every game presented by Bodog. From sports odds to free casino games, make a play at bodog.net. Wadden and JPat here with you with another edition of the pregame, but want to remind you guys, if you're not following us on your favorite podcast platform, do that right now. And hey, you're watching us on YouTube on this channel, why not smash that subscribe button? All right, JPat, a new chapter in Canucks hockey starts tonight. TikTok, it's Rick Tocchet time.
Yeah, I thought maybe you would be dressed up in your best Elton John, a little Tocchet man, perhaps, or I don't know, how about Taco Tuesday? Tocchet Tuesday? Does that work for you? Whatever the case, yes, it's the debut of Rick Tocchet behind the bench as the Canucks take on the Chicago Blackhawks. We've talked about this being sort of a soft launch pad after the 12-game gauntlet. Canucks are at home to Chicago. They're in Seattle, and then they wrap up this week against Columbus on Friday, and then, of course, there's a week off. So 3 games in 4 nights. It's going to be busy for a new head coach who had 1 practice yesterday, and we'll see how his team responds to the coaching change and just everything that's gone on around the Vancouver Canucks over the last 48 to 72 hours.
Let's get to the lineup change, which is presented by Delaney's OK Tire out there on Fraser Highway in Langley. Looks like Studnicka's getting a bump, and Colin Delia perhaps going to face off against his old team.
Yeah, it does look like that's the decision. In goal, it's going to be Colin Delia. I would imagine that Spencer Martin probably gets the back half of the back-to-backs in Seattle on Wednesday night, and then we'll see about Friday. But for this one, Colin Delia going up against his former mates for the first time in his National Hockey League career. Of course, he's delivered the only victory for the Vancouver Canucks here in the last couple of weeks. That was the shootout win in Carolina at the tail end of the road trip. And then, yeah, new coach with a couple of new looks, and not a surprise after what we heard at the introductory press conference on Sunday. Jack Studnicka looks like one of the guys that's going to get the new coach bump, playing with Bo Horvat and Brock Besser. JT Miller slides back to the middle. We've seen that experiment before. Hasn't always gone well. Looks like he'll center a line with Connor Garland and Sheldon Dries. Elias Pettersson with the Russians. And we'll see if Ilya Mikheyev can get the EP40 bounce here. He's due. He's got 12 games without a goal. The only line that looks like it's really going to be kept intact is the 4th line. And we thought that 4th line the other night had one of its best games in a while against the Edmonton Oilers. And with Rick Tocchet coming in, you would think that some of those guys, the role players, the grinders, maybe they would want to step up and be noticed by the head coach. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Not surprised that Rick Tocchet's trying to put his stamp on things. And he's also doing it on defense as well. You bring in Sergei Gonchar and Adam Foote. They had a day to practice with the defense corps on Monday. Probably not a lot of time there to entirely revamp the defensive efforts for the Vancouver Canucks, but we'll see. Quinn Hughes playing with Tyler Myers is interesting. OEL and Luke Shen, a couple of veterans paired together. And then it looks like it's going to be Kyle Burrows in the lineup with Travis Dermott. Ethan Bear back around the team after taking the weekend off for personal reasons, but it doesn't look like Ethan Bear is going to draw in tonight for the Vancouver Canucks.
Our question today for you, the viewer, is will we see a noticeable difference in play from the Canucks under Rick Tocchet? What say you, JPat?
I think you'll see them come out hot and try to impress the coach early on. Wouldn't surprise if you see a few guys stepping up and trying to finish checks, maybe guys that don't normally do that. But over the long haul, it's the same roster. And so you're moving the pieces around. It's a flawed roster. We know that. I think what I'm going to be looking for tonight is ice time of some of these guys like Studnicka and Dries who are getting a chance in the top 6, guys who haven't played an awful lot under Bruce Boudreau. So that's one thing. And then special teams. We've heard a lot about, Rick Tocchet knows, 30-second penalty kill, dead last in the NHL, nowhere close to good enough. What tweaks? What changes, what kind of deployment, and who's going to be doing the penalty killing for the Vancouver Canucks. So those are the couple of things that I'm going to be looking at is ice time for some of the lesser lights as they get a bump, and also who's going to be deployed as a penalty killer. And I'm kind of curious to see if there are fundamental changes in that area of the game.
Going to be looking at Bo Horvat and JT Miller together once again. They both produce, but together kind of mixed results.
Yeah, we're talking about Horvat and Besser here. They're going to play together. JT Miller, as we said, in the middle. We've seen this before. Brock Besser and Bo Horvat early in their careers seem to have some chemistry, but of late, that's not been the case. Certainly earlier this season, all of a sudden now Brock Besser, 1 goal in 6, and the captain, who has been on this goal-scoring heater all season, 1 goal in his last 7. It was a power play goal in Florida, so no even strength goals from Bo in the last 7 games. And with Jack Studnicka on the other side, your guess is as good as mine what that's going to look like, but that is a line that Rick Tocchet's going to start with. Nothing says that he has to stay with it throughout the game if it's not working. But the 2 veterans, Horvat and Besser, this season at least, hasn't produced a ton of magic, so we'll see what happens tonight.
And you talked about opportunity. Jack Studnicka getting opportunity, it looks like, from the new head coach. But that's what the new head coach wants from the lower guys in the lineup.
Yeah, and look, they haven't got a lot in the way of offense. We've talked about this a fair bit lately on post-game pods. Curtis Lazar, 26 games without a point. Dakota Joshua, 18 games now without a goal. And yet with Will Lockwood on their line, they played well against the Oilers the other night. They were involved physically, crashing the crease and finishing checks and those types of things. And so can they pick up where they left off? You'd like some offensive contribution, but ultimately they are role players. And I think the role here is to bring the energy, to get the crowd into it, drag some teammates into the battle as well. So I am kind of curious to see how they respond to Rick Tocchet behind the bench tonight.
Yeah, curious to see how the fans are going to respond to Rick Tocchet being behind the bench after such an emotional weekend, saying goodbye to Bruce.
Yeah, you wonder about the energy. There was so much of it, as you said, the fond farewell for Bruce Boudreau. I don't think they're going to be chanting Rick Tocchet's name. I stand to be corrected here. And of course, when Bruce Boudreau came in, remember his first game against the LA Kings, a shutout. And it remains the last shutout the Vancouver Canucks have had as an organization. So I'm not making any great predictions here, but I do wonder how will the fan base respond, because their beloved figure, Bruce Boudreau, is not there. I still think there's a lot of anger in the market that can be directed towards management or ownership. So we'll see what kind of outlet the fans have in the way of using their voice to vent their frustration if there is displeasure, or maybe they're on board with this and maybe the team will rise to the occasion here again. A pretty soft opponent in the 30th place Chicago Blackhawks.
Let's get to those Blackhawks now. And as you mentioned, yeah, they're sitting in 30th place, but they lost to LA on Sunday. But before that, they had a pretty good stretch of games.
Yeah, their best stretch of the season. In fact, they had won 6 of 8 before the weekend. So, better. Although, I guess in the grand scheme, if you're trying to bottom out and win the Bedard sweepstakes, all of a sudden winning 6 of 8 really doesn't help your cause. And if they have climbed the NHL ladder, as we said, they were 32nd for a while there. They have moved all the way into 30th place. So they're still very much contenders for the first overall pick, depending on the lottery balls and the way that they bounce when that happens. But yes, there's been a little uptick, at least in outcomes for the Chicago Blackhawks. And that's probably good for just the morale of the players, but in the grand scheme organizationally, if they wanted to get their hands on Connor Bedard and get that first overall pick, I don't know that they want this win streak to continue.
And this isn't the Blackhawks from a decade ago. They are the lowest scoring team in the NHL.
Yeah, 108 goals on the season. So on a per game basis, Anaheim has scored a little bit less, but just in terms of raw goals put in the net, nobody has scored fewer goals than the Chicago Blackhawks this year. Yeah, I mean, the names, Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews, they are there. They're among the leading scorers for this team. It's just that nobody scores at any sort of significant rate. So you go back in time here, the Blackhawks are the lowest scoring team in the NHL this year. The last 4 times they faced the Canucks, they've mustered just 3 goals. But they didn't win one of those games. They were shut out once. They shut the Canucks out 1-0, and then were held to a single goal on a couple of occasions as well. So the Canucks stressing defense. The Blackhawks don't score much. I'm getting a sense that you might take the under. Although then again, with this Canucks defense, hey, even a struggling Chicago team, they may get the Canuck bounce tonight. Who knows?
And their leading goal scorer and leading point producer might be on the trade block.
Yeah, again, it might surprise us. I mean, just for the better part of a decade, we've been conditioned to Patrick Kane leading the charge for this hockey club. And of course, the Blackhawks traded Alex DeBrincat in the offseason. Kirby Dach wound up in Montreal. So they've done some house cleaning. I think there's going to be a whole lot more. But Max Domi is the guy that leads this team. 14 goals and 32 points. So again, those are not, outrageous offensive numbers, but it is Max Domi is the goal scoring and point leader for the Blackhawks coming into action tonight.
Yeah, and as mentioned, he is one of those trade chips, but they got a few on the Blackhawks, including perhaps Patrick Kane. Yeah,
Kane, Toews, Jake McCabe's name is certainly out there. Andreas Athanasiou. Can there be any? There can't be any untouchables on the Chicago roster. Seth Jones probably isn't going anywhere just based on his contract, and he is going to the All-Star game. He's had a decent run on defense for the Blackhawks, but yeah, the big ticket items are Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews, the fixtures of the 3 Stanley Cups over the last 12 years. The question there is, what does a deal look like? I mean, they both make $10 million against the cap. And so there's going to have to be some salary cap gymnastics involved, probably a fair bit of salary retention. But you talk about experience. You got Captain Sirius and all the leadership of Jonathan Taves. And of course, Patrick Kane can still get it done. I know his numbers are down this season, but a guy that's been there and done that, performed at the highest level and has the rings to show for it. So yeah, as we get closer to the trade deadline, I think the Blackhawks certainly a team that are open for business and one that's going to be worth watching.
And Jason Dickinson might be someone worth watching tonight. Revenge game, perhaps?
Jason Dickinson didn't work out for him here. There were reports that he played through a broken hand that went undiagnosed. Whatever the case, it was a massive disappointment for him last year. Just 11 points in his time as a Canuck. Started as a third-line center. Lost his position there because he couldn't win faceoffs. He's a winger on the Blackhawks. He's essentially the third-line left winger here, but he's already exceeded his point total from last season. He's matched his goal total with 5. He's up to 14 points. He had 3 points in a win here recently. So there is a little bit of life in Jason Dickinson, but yeah, hard to draw this up as the Jason Dickinson revenge match, but it is the first time that he has faced the Vancouver Canucks since he was traded on the final night of the preseason. I remember that the Canucks pulled off that deal while they were playing the Arizona Coyotes. Patrick Allvin was made available, and that's when we learned that the second rounder had gone with Dickinson, and Riley Stillman was the guy that they got in return.
Let's get to my Bodog Best Bet because I'm on an absolute heater right now. Winner of 3 games in a row, looking to keep it rolling here. Feeling the Canucks tonight, JPat. They want to get one for their new head coach, and I like them on the puck line minus a goal and a half at plus 110. Canucks by 2 or more tonight.
Yeah, and the Canucks haven't been great on home ice all season long, but the Blackhawks have 5 road wins all year. I mean, they've been a disaster away from home. They've been a disaster at home. So I get the sense. It's not guaranteed, but it's usually a safe bet when a new coach comes in that his team responds at least for a night. So yeah, I like that one for you, and we'll see if you can keep that good stuff rolling.
All right, let's get to the stat that stands out, presented by Jason Hominick at jason.mortgage.
Yeah, I've got 2 for this program. I don't know if this is just because there's a new coach and it's a celebrated night, whatever. I'm going rogue a little bit. I've got 2 stats that stand out to me. Actually, they both involve the Chicago Blackhawks. One is the Hawks are the only team in the NHL this season to use 5 goalies. That's never a good thing. And some nights I think they probably wish they could stack all 5 of them in the net at the same time and try to keep some pucks out. But when you go that deep on the depth chart, that usually indicates that you've got some injuries, but you've also just got guys that have struggled to make the saves necessary. So we'll see what they do as far as their goaltending is concerned, but barely past the midway mark, and they've already used 5 guys at that position. The other one is from the middle of November through early January, the Chicago team won 2 games in a 23-game stretch. They went 2-20-1. So some dark days in the Windy City. As we said, they've pulled out of it, and since then have won 6 of 8. So they are playing a little bit better. The Canucks are in no position to take anybody easily, but boy, when you have a run of 2 wins in 23 games, ouch, that's gotta hurt. And so there you go. Those are stats that stand out to me, and they are brought to you by our friend Jason Hominick at jason.mortgage.
All right, JPat, the best part of the pregame. Who tonight is going to do something in this game?
Yeah, I'm looking at Jack Studnicka. I mean, we'll see how guys respond. There was so much talk at that press conference on Sunday about Bruce Boudreau only used 2/3 of his roster, that there are other guys that they have to figure out if they can play. What can they do for this hockey club? Canucks, of course, acquired Studnicka from Boston earlier this year. There have been some moments. He's got NHL speed. He's got 4 goals, 6 points in limited game action. And the thing I'm going to be looking for again with him is ice time. If he's playing with Horvat and Besser, pretty good chance he's going to take a regular shift at even strength. This is a guy that comes in averaging 10 minutes and 30 seconds of ice time. So how significant will the increase be for Jack Studnicka, and what will he do? And in saying all of that, when I say I expect him to do something, again, we've seen that wingers with Bo Horvat, they have struggled this year. That Bo's just not that playmaking center. He's a goal scorer. You want to see him get back on the horse and put pucks in the net. But when it comes to setting up his teammates, that hasn't necessarily been his strong suit. So, Studnicka will take the increased role to play with a couple of veterans, proven guys in the National Hockey League. What can he do with it? We'll find out tonight. Jack Studnicka, for the first time this season, I think. I'm looking at you to do something to show the coach that you can handle a larger role on this hockey club.
Well, everybody's going to want to do something tonight. Want to win one for the Gipper, the new head coach, Rick Tocchet. Game 1 behind the bench for the Vancouver Canucks. This has been another edition of the Rink-Wide Vancouver podcast presented by Bodog. For Jeff Patterson, I'm Andrew Wadden. Remember, Rink-Wide is the show that always scores.